My name is John Chiarcos, and I'd like to say a few words about the ESL program. I joined under the Board of Education. I started working in 1966. The school at that time was on Erie Street at the former Air Force Veterans building. It had just started because the Air Force base in Centralia, where they were training NATO pilots, and where these teachers were teaching them English, it had just shut down in July. And the teachers from there were brought down to Windsor to start in this program, which was designed to help immigrants to Canada to get enough English that they could get a job, go shopping, live life. So it was a 6-month program. I was at the time teaching, what would you call it? For the separate school board, they were, I was taking the place of teachers who couldn't come in. And
like a sub, eh?
I was a sub, yeah. They'd call me in for that. It wasn't bad, $12.50 a day, but
It's a big money.
yes. The reason I was hired, I figured out, was because I could speak Italian. The program was on Erie Street, which is in the center there of the Italian area. And a lot of the students who were being signed up for this program couldn't fill the forms out in the office. They were having real trouble. And they figured that I would be able to help.
That sounds familiar.
And that was my in to the college.
Who's your sidekick?
At that time,
Here.
No.
oh, here. Go ahead, Ralph.
Yeah, okay, my name's Ralf Horacek, and I started in EASL May the 3rd, 1967. And John was my first boss. And I thought he was the boss. Okay, so, and the way I got hired is I was still going to university, working on my master's, and I got tired of being poor, and I saw an ad in the paper. They were looking for teachers to teach EASL. And so I applied and got interviewed by Joe Menzel. And I remember him saying, yeah, similar things that that John was talking about, because I was born in Germany and I came to Canada when I was 10. So when he found that out, he said, oh yeah, you'd be perfect because you have empathy for immigrants because you're one yourself. And for a while you will be double banking with John Chiarcos. So because I had no kind of teaching experience at all. And so I didn't know what double banking meant. I found out later it was like for two pilots, they would like fly side by side and they would help one another out. And anyway, so I started teaching. I remember I was like really petrified because I had no idea what to do. And each night trying to prepare for the next day, I would have a lot of sleepless nights and stay up late so I could learn the next day's material. And I remember after a while there was an older woman, like very old, like by my grandmother's age. I was in my early 20s at the time. She came in and talked to us, and I remember joking to one of the other staff members, who's the old broad? And I was saying to her, and it was Janet Bernhardt, and it turns out she was the daughter of Mrs. Neville. It turned out, but she took it well and she laughed it off. And Mrs. Neville she was really the boss, and I didn't even know who that was when she came in. And John was like coordinator, and she was gone for some reason when I started, and he was there. So I just assumed he was in charge, right? So.
Bill Hart, he was running the program up there. When Centralia closed, which is just outside of London, he wasn't interested in coming down to Windsor. So they made her the head. So now when he came down there, there was a little tension because Bill had been her boss, but down here in Windsor, she was Bill's boss. And we did have a little bit of friction, but things worked out.
Can you tell us a little bit about some of the students, the types of students that you dealt with?
Well, at that time, they were basically immigrants from Italy, Yugoslavia, and Greece. Those were the three main groups. And soon it became more and more Yugoslavians and Greeks, right?
Yeah, basically, over the years, we got people, wherever there was a hot spot, some crisis in the world, just like today, that's where they would all come from. So
What was your first hotspot? Was that the
probably the Czechs, and I remember, probably looking back, they were my very favorite group to teach because they were all the intelligent or the intellectuals of the country that left. So we had doctors, lawyers, dentists, engineers, and so they were like great to teach. And I remember half of them knew some English when they came, and the other half knew nothing. So I would split them up into two groups and in two different rooms, and I'd go back and forth and teach the ones that knew some English. I'd give them some written work, and then I'd run over and do oral work with the other ones. And after 3 months or so, I'd combine them because I brought the one group up to the level of the others. And they were like very nice to teach. And we kind of, we did everything with the students. We would take them like to Bablo for the day and take them downtown to go through supermarkets, teach them how to buy food and what the names of the vegetables were and things like that. So it was like, and they would translate their love for what we were doing or their appreciation. They would bring food. So we were exposed to all kinds of food from all over the world, which I really enjoyed. And they invited us to their homes and things like that. So it was like...
Yeah, there was also a special thing with them, for me anyway. A couple of the students got married, and they invited my wife and me to the wedding. And when I got there, the best man hadn't shown up. So I was wearing a suit, so they asked me to be the best man.
Yeah.
Dusan and Ludmila were the names. I still remember. I was their best man at their wedding, at their little celebration.
What's the history behind the Yugoslavs being here?
Well, there were always, it wasn't, with the Yugoslavians, it wasn't so much some crisis or anything. They just immigrated from Yugoslavia, the same as they would come from Italy or from Greece. But with the Czechs, it was what was it called, the Czech Spring? It was in the late 60s, 68 or 69. But it was a nice contrast because they were, as you said, highly trained and intellectuals and all these high professions. But we were at a former kindergarten called David Maxwell Elementary School, had a couple of small kindergarten buildings across the street, and we would go in there in the evening, and those were our classes. We ran from about 3 to 9:30 or something like that, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was really great to have that because I could go to school like in the daytime and teach afternoons and still have time to go out at 9:30 to the bars and whatnot. So it was like a perfect lifestyle.
One of the crises after a while was the one in Vietnam, correct?
Pardon?
One of the crises after that was the Vietnamese war in Vietnam.
Yeah,
Yes.
That was it was a difficult time because of the trauma that most of the students had gone through to get here. So there was a lot of depression and like, especially some of the women who had lost family members and they were like raped and things by pirates on the boats on the way over. So yeah, those were...
Yeah, it was difficult to teach those people primarily because Vietnamese have such, number one, they have such a different pronunciation, sound system in their language. They found it very, very difficult to modify to English. I found them the toughest group of all students we ever had to speak. They could get the grammar, they got the words, couldn't understand them. It was very difficult to modify their speech. But on top of that, it was, as Ralph mentioned, the trauma of seeing, you know, people die beside them and stuff. They'd been through. And I can remember one student who she just huddled through every class and did nothing but stare into space. All she could do. It was a terrible time. But we were always in different buildings because the board would put us wherever they could find space. We were in the High School of Commerce.
Yeah, the bus barns. And,
the bus barns.
the
old Voight
yeah.
building, Erie Street.
And the income tax building.
Yeah. Yep.
Right, on
That's right.
University.
Yeah, that's where we were when the Vietnamese came.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the old Patterson, former Patterson High School.
We got bounced around all over the place. But
Yep.
in a way, we liked it. We were
Yeah.
like pretty cohesive as a staff, and we were all around the same age, and we did everything together too. Like we would go to each other's homes and have parties, and we had dances for the students where we would like a Friday night or
Yep.
I don't remember, like Saturday or whatever, and we would bartend and play music for them and give them a chance to socialize, and that was kind of fun. And the other thing was we had graduations after 6 months. The students were always there for 6 months, and at the graduation we'd have to put on some kind of, it's like a talent show. We put on skits, and if people had any kind of particular talent, we'd get them to do that. And like I remember having one woman, she was pregnant and she was belly dancing on stage, and it was very good. So, but it was always pressure. If you had the end group that was graduating to put on this performance, I always found that to be a lot of pressure. They had to MC that and rehearse it and put on a little, like, it's kind of like American Idol type thing.
Yeah.
So,
But the thing was, we had changed. The students stayed for 6 months, but they didn't start and go through for 6 months. Every 4 weeks we had a new start. So every 4 weeks, one class was the top class was graduating, but the other classes would have a little party, I guess, every 4 weeks, every change. So they got a new teacher every 4 weeks.
all right.
Remember that?
Yeah, the way we used to work, after a while, I mean, at first we would teach every group, like a beginning group, the first month, and work our way through. But after a while, like some people would continuously have like the beginning group, for example, and we kind of felt we had two people that were like, they were like more grandmotherly type women, and we thought, well, the beginners, they needed special care, so they would usually teach those classes, and I, for example, would gravitate towards the more advanced levels, and we kind of would continue to do that for.
Who were some of your more memorable staff members?
Like Graham Maxwell was, he passed away. He was like really funny and got us laughing all the time.
He was a spark plug. Yep.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he was. He was good as an MC too. Like he often did some things, functions at the college level to MC the show. So he was just hilarious and had us in stitches most of the time. And I remember him saying, you know, when we would complain about we had to talk so much, it was all day long, 5 hours of talking, and like I would come home and not want to talk to anybody because I had my fill for the day. And he would say, well, just give him some silent guided reading, and you know, so you can have a break. But then too, after a while, we got a language lab that Doug McLeod, he was one of our staff members, he got time off to develop these tapes. So we kind of liked that because they would have an hour every day where they would go into a lab with earphones and just do oral work on their own and work on their own at their own level, and we could listen in and see how they were doing from one like a console. And so we thought that was really good because we got this hour break. We didn't have to talk, so we liked that.
The being at Patterson, I found was especially good. We had the whole high school pretty well to ourselves. There was a gymnasium where they could play volleyball, but of course the college was a bit worried about injury, so they put up, the college here had a sign put together. It was supposed to say, play at your own risk, but there we were the ESL department, so somehow the sign came out, play at own your risk, you know, which was ironic, but great for our thing. And we all had separate, we had beautiful little offices, we had large classrooms. It was very nice. While we were at Patterson, what group came in? Yes, the Lebanese. The Lebanese, there was a war, civil war in Lebanon.
Yeah, they were, exactly. They had like the Muslim Lebanese and the Christians.
Yep.
They would come here and they would bring all the shit that they had back there. They would bring that with them, especially the young guys. I remember having a fight at a graduation between the Muslim and Christian Lebanese, and we had to call the cops to kind of, no, seriously, they were throwing chairs at one another and whatnot. Got totally out of hand sometimes, so yeah. But that's kind of standard. It's the stuff that was going on back home. It's like baggage. You bring that with you over here. It doesn't just go away.
But
What happened with the Libyans?
Oh, the Libyans. Well, my least favorite group because they were like these young guys, 18, 19, 20, and Gaddafi brought them over to Canada to learn English because he wanted to replace the foreign workers in Libya that were working in the oil and aircraft industries. He wanted to boot them out and have his own people do that, except they had no skills, right? So learning a language was the first part. But the problem was these guys, they came here, they looked around and they saw women that were not totally veiled up. They were like in mini skirts and they were like in Candyland and they were more interested in finding a girlfriend and staying here, and most of them, as far as I know, they didn't go back. They just stayed here and found a way to get...
Well, this was during Reagan's presidency and in the States, and at that time there was a big news thing out that the Libyans had sent a hit team, remember, to the States to try to take out Reagan. And so border controls were tough and everything. These Libyans were supposed to have gone to schools in the United States. But with Reagan and all this in power, they were not refused visas, and so they turned to Canada. They were spread out through most of our community colleges at that time. But our people went across the border quite often and never had any problems. But we didn't advertise the fact that we had the Libyans here across from Detroit.
They were fun. They were like party guys. They weren't very serious and didn't really care about learning anything. So that was.
Can you tell us a little bit about the integration of the program from the Windsor Board as it came into St. Clair?
1970.
Yeah, we were just kind of taken over, I thought, and I don't even recall that. We thought it was a good idea. I don't think anybody objected. We thought, why not? We were totally happy either way, though.
Yeah.
But,
It didn't really come down to anybody asking us or discussing much. We were kind of told St. Clair's taking over, and we thought, that was okay. And I remember coming here for some sessions at the college, orientation sessions, and that was it. The rest of the time, then things went on as normal. Except we did get some funding from Dr. Quittenton at the time to start. Remember the Ethnocultural Association?
Yeah,
We started a group where we would try to do some things for our students, like we were talking about these dances and parties that we put on. We put on movies. We would rent, have them deliver the reels,
Yeah, yeah.
remember? And we would do this once a month or something like that, so the students would have something to do, some recreation time. But Dr. Quitten did put in a little bit of seed money for that to get us going. You could actually say that the Ethnocultural Association, John Fisher, one of our fellow teachers, actually was one of the roots of today's Multicultural Council.
Yeah.
Because there was no Multicultural Council, we did this, and the Carousel of Nations kind of started from that.
which is still going on. And
Yeah.
I like going there and tasting all the food from all
Yes.
over.
John, you've been teaching up until quite recently. Where are some of the immigrants coming from now?
The immigrants were getting right, well, I can't tell you right now, it's been a couple years, but they were more from China and from South America. We didn't get very many from China or South America before. Spanish speakers were rare, and so were Mandarin speakers. There were more European students that we had. But more recently, we're getting a lot of people from the Orient.
We'll try to inject some pictures if we can of some of the staff members, but you mentioned a few names of what Betty Jean Cadrak was one. Who was some of the Casper?
Casper Vanderslice, yeah.
Yep, Casper Vanderslice.
Shirley Zakvich?
Yes.
Yeah.
You can mention their names. I'm going to be edited.
Susan Reed,
Yep.
Claire Daziel, she was like the little grandmotherly type I was talking about earlier. She used to get the beginners, and she was very good with them too. It was a perfect match between her personality and what the beginning students kind of needed.
I should mention Nejat Goritza, who just died a few weeks ago. Nejat, yeah.
I didn't know that.
No. Nejat came as a student in the 60s, late 60s, from Turkey, and he ended up coming back as a teacher. He taught in our department, and that was quite the thing.
Yeah, there was some discussion about that. Some of the staff members thought, because he had an accent, right? Because he wasn't a native speaker, obviously. So then, well, how can he be teaching English as a second language? Because he's not a native speaker, he has an accent. And I said, well, no matter what, the students that we crank out, they all will have accents anyways.
That's right.
Because the only way you can have or not have an accent is you need to come to this country before around the age of puberty. After that, the window closes, and no matter what, you'll still have an accent. I mean, I'm a case in point, and so is John. I came when I was 10, and my parents came at the same time, and they had an accent all their lives because they were in their 30s, and I was 10 years old, so there you go. But he turned out to be like a really good teacher, too. And,
Great, yeah.
yeah, it was very good.
This is one thing that Olive Neville pushed. It was, I know because I discussed this with her at the time that we were looking to hire the teacher, and she said she wanted him. She thought it was a good idea. She was she pushed it.
Yeah, well, she was right. She was probably one of the best bosses, in my recollection, that I had. And then later on, like Jim Gretas, who was in charge of the whole thing, he was very good. And Jack Costello, when I was in post-secondary, he was like really great too. But
I'm trying to think of another group that came in besides.
yeah, they were like from everywhere. There's no,
Yeah.
you know, like I said, it's mostly depending on where there was a hot spot in the world. Then you would tend to get, you know, a large influx from those countries. But
I'm going to assume this is very satisfying work.
yeah, like after about 12 years of teaching EASL, I moved over to South Campus, to the main campus, and did post-secondary English and psychology. And night and day, basically the students, the EASL students, they wanted to learn mostly, because it was important for them to speak English so they could work. Whereas in post-secondary, it's a totally different kind of ballgame. And one of the things that just struck me is the students, they used to want to give us something, like they would chip in and buy a present. And we tried to discourage that. They didn't have any money, and we knew that, and we tried to get them to not do that, spend anything on us. But we couldn't stop them. So we got this idea, okay, we have a library. Why don't you, if you're going to pull some money together, buy a book for the library so other students could use it. So they did that. They bought books, and then they would still buy us something else on top of that. So, and one time, one of the memorable gifts that I got was a coiled plaster cobra ready to strike. And I thought, okay, where am I going to put that in? But they were well-meaning.
Well, it was on Erie Street at that time, and they had those little convenience stores there.
Yeah.
You could buy coiled cobras.
Right. Or at the mall, they had in the hallways in the mall, they would have places where you could buy that kind of stuff. So I know John got I got a pirate ship one time or was that you that got that? Or?
I got a pirate ship.
Pirate ship, with drink bottles.
That would hold a
decanter
yes.
and little glasses. Priceless stuff.
Pardon?
Some final thoughts.
Well, it was great teaching. ESL has always been wonderful teaching because it's pure teaching. The student has a need, and you're the one who can fulfill the need. But it's a great responsibility at the same time. It really felt good doing this kind of thing because they appreciated it. And you started out, when they started, they didn't have any English. When they finished, they could
it's like having a
handle
baby,
themselves.
When they first get their first words, and then you know what you've taught them and what they know as they grow. It's the same type of feeling.
Yeah.
So you say, we teach them how to speak, and then they use it against us. That was good. Yeah, it was like, in my recollection, this is the best teaching. Although I always liked my job, even like teaching post-secondary after was great too, but just different. So, yeah.